What's up, everybody? We're back for some more Malifaux lore, and this week we're talking about Mei Feng of the Ten Thunders and the Arcanists. So spoilers coming up for all of Mei Feng's stories, and there will be a list of those stories in the description below so you can check them out for yourself. If you like this series, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with some friends. And with that out of the way, let's get into Mei Feng. Mei Feng stands looking over her workers as they construct a rail line through the wilderness. A Torokage approaches and tells her that the Oyabun of the Ten Thunders is requesting an update. Mei Feng thinks about how she's butted heads with the Oyabun in the past, as he seems to be jealous of her powers over fire and steel. Mei Feng's insubordinate nature led her to be punished by her leader, and afterwards she realized that she had no respect for him. She was sent to Malifaux ahead of the Ten Thunders, and joined up as a rail worker in order to infiltrate the Arcanists. She slowly started to reveal some of her powers, and eventually it attracted the attention of Victor Ramos. He didn't immediately invite her to the Arcanists, but he put her in charge of a rail crew, along with her associate, Kang. Mei Feng became a popular leader, and when rail workers would get injured, and the Union offered to pay for them to get replacement limbs, a significant expense that would mean they were indebted to the Union for a long period of time, Mei Feng would offer to provide a replacement free of charge, requesting only their loyalty. As a result, the workers are dedicated to Mei Feng, and she has the ability to control the progress on the rail lines without attracting any attention. She turns to the Torokage and confirms that the rail line they're currently working on will be delayed by 2 weeks, just as the Oyabun wanted. The Torokage disappears, and Mei Feng considers whether she should come in late or early for that deadline. Chiaki helps guide a man named Van Stroker as he investigates a series of murders. The investigation leads them to bump into several of the Ten Thunders' masters, and eventually one of the murders happens at a rail yard. Stroker and Chiaki head there, and are soon confronted by Mei Feng and a group of rail workers. She threatens the two for trespassing, and Stroker, not wanting to back down, slowly raises his crossbow. In a flash, Mei Feng lifts her foot, bringing it down on the crossbow and shattering it into pieces. She comments that this is a waste of her time, and turns to leave. Stroker and Chiaki decide that it would be best if they do the same. He eventually makes his way to the Library of All Things, where Masaki and the other Thunder's masters are waiting for him. She explains that this library contains all of the myths and legends of humanity, and that the stories contained in it influence and shape Malifaux society. The Thunders had planned to remove some of those stories and replace them with ones from the Three Kingdoms in order to help them infiltrate Malifaux. Chiaki explains that he is the personification of Van Helsing and Sherlock Holmes, and that after he escaped the library, they had to find a way to get him to return to the library willingly. McCabe draws a knife and is about to stab the man, but Misaki stops him and tells him that these stories have earned their place, and returns 2 books back to the bookshelf. Mei Feng enters a room with Misaki and bows to her. Misaki responds by pressing Mei Feng, asking her why she has not been able to follow her orders. Mei Feng responds that she does not have enough men to complete the project, and that she thinks Ramos is onto her. Misaki tells her that they don't have any more time or resources, and that they need the Underground Railroad in order to continue their work, away from the prying eyes of the Guild and the Union. Mei Feng doesn't respond but clenches her fists, and Misaki softens her tone, and tells the woman that their people are depending on her to get the work done. She invites Mei Feng to her table for tea, and seeing that the woman is still tense, she asks her if she feels she has been wronged. Mei Feng explains that she has been working her people to death, but she will gladly keep doing as the Oyabun has ordered her, and she would kill Ramos with her bare hands if told to do so. Misaki tells her that she would gladly join her in the fight, but that they are not ready for that yet, and they need to continue as planned. Mei Feng asks her why she is here, and Misaki responds that a darkness is coming, and that they are all in danger. At that, a man walks in, and seats himself at the table, prompting Mei Feng to stand up in rage at the disrespect of sitting down without being invited. Misaki calms her and offers Jacob some tea, which he gladly accepts. He asks why he has been brought there, and Misaki responds that they need information. Jacob asks what they would like to know from him, and a disembodied voice replies, "Nothing. We want the information from the creature within you." Jacob looks around trying to find the source, as Yan Lo appears, and Jacob shrugs and says he doesn't understand. Yan Lo demands to speak with the creature within him, and Jacob's eyes roll back in his head, and a voice comes from inside. Yan Lo tells it that the tyrants have returned, and the Hungering Darkness replies that he is lying, as the tyrants have been banished. Yan Lo tells him that he has seen it for himself, and that they will return and destroy the world. And the Hungering Darkness responds that he survived the ancient times by hiding from the tyrants, not fighting them. Yan Lo explains that he does not want the Hungering Darkness to fight. He wants it to tell him how to trap them. Mei Feng heads to the mountains in the north, where the Ten Thunders oversee a smaller breach between Malifaux and Earth. She meets with a doctor who is a refugee from the Three Kingdoms and leads him down out of the mountains to the town of Promise. The man is impressed by the town, which is new with sturdy buildings, and he is delighted to see that it is populated with many people from his home. Mei Feng explains to him that this town was built by her organization, and they are far enough away from guild power to go mostly unnoticed. As she's explaining, a dirty, soot-covered woman throws herself at Mei Feng, begging the woman to be able to see her son. Kang seizes her, throwing her off, and tells her that she does not have permission to touch Mistress Fang. Mei Feng calms him down and helps the woman up, explaining that the money she sent is being used to buy her son medicine and that he should be recovering soon. The woman gives them both an angry and scared look and walks away. Mei Feng explains to the doctor that the woman's son was injured in a mining accident and then introduces him to Kang. Kang comments that the doctor is smaller than he expected and that their people must really be starving under guild occupation. The doctor agrees and asks to confirm that he's going to be able to work here in exchange for them having brought him through the breach. Kang confirms, explaining that Mei Feng's brother, the Boxer, a leader and symbol of the Three Kingdoms' resistance against the guild, has vouched for the doctor's abilities. Weeks later, the doctor is brought into a room with a man who is badly burned. He starts to mix a balm out of herbs and spreads it over the man's skin until his pain is relieved enough that he falls asleep. The doctor jumps as Mei Feng speaks from behind him, asking how he does it. The doctor explains that this was his grandfather's remedy for burns and that the man should be healed in a week. Mei Feng says her brother was right about him, and he comments that the burns are inconsistent with the others he's seen this week and asks who this man was and what happened. She tells him that there was an accident with one of her rail golems, and he suggests that she may be endangering her people unnecessarily. Mei Feng fumes and tells him that he shouldn't ask so many questions as it may be mistaken for ingratitude. He apologizes and she explains that her men are paid handsomely and understand the risks, and that it's far better for them here than it was back home under guild rule. She dismisses him for the evening and then leaves with a look of deep thought on her face. That night, the man is walking through the town and notices Mei Feng walking alone. This strikes him as odd, since she usually has a retinue with her, and he thinks that she must be going somewhere in secret. His curiosity gets the better of him, and he follows. When he finds her, she's in a small room with a man tied to a chair. She presses a dagger against his neck and demands to know why he has not paid his dues. He says that he cannot pay, and she thrusts the dagger into his thigh. After he stops screaming, he argues that he can't even afford to feed his family, and he is about to insult her when she twists the knife. She demands that he works harder, as he made a promise to them when they smuggled him through the breach. She pulls the dagger out and tells the man that they saved him from the guild, gave him a new life and a business, and that he owes them. She tells him that he will do what they say when they say it. The man nods vigorously, as the doctor decides he's had enough of watching and flees back to his quarters, with thoughts of the dagger haunting him. After midnight, he is awoken by Mei Feng, who is frantically asking him to get up, as one of her men has been injured in a steel mill, and a drilling machine went through his thigh, and he lost some fingers. After treating the man, the doctor is brought to Mei Feng to report on his condition. He tells her that the man survived, and she notices that he's less passionate than he usually is. He tells her that he can no longer work from her, and calls her a lying witch. Mei Feng expected this day to come, and asks him how long he has known. The man demands to know how many of the people he has helped were just being healed to go be tortured again. She tells him dispassionately that fear is an excellent way to keep people paying their protection money, and the doctor demands to know if anything he was told about the Thunders being freedom fighters trying to liberate their people was true. Mei Feng responds that it is true, but not in the way he thinks. A woman moves out of the shadows and tells the doctor that she's sorry that they lied to him. He recognizes the voice as his longtime friend and neighbor from back home. The woman takes off her mask and assures him that the rebellion against the guild is real. The man asks her how long she has known, and she explains that she has always been a Ten Thunders agent, and her mission was to convince him to come to Malifaux and work for them. She explains that their home is already lost, and that the rebellion and the opium trade were all orchestrated by the Ten Thunders to create chaos, in order to encourage people to immigrate to their new home, Malifaux. The man suddenly looks at Mei Feng and tells her that she was right, that to the Ten Thunders everyone is disposable. He quickly grabs her hand and thrusts her claws deep into his stomach, to Mei Feng's shock. With his last breath, he whispers to her that she is disposable too. As Mei Feng cleans up the blood in her quarters, she starts to question if they will ever really be able to build their new home here. As the Governor General goes on a PR tour through the contract towns, Mei Feng decides to start a protest. She marches a group of workers down the street and approaches the location where the Governor General is supposed to give a speech. The mob encounters a line of guild guards as the Governor General himself steps out on a balcony. The man looks up in the sky, and light starts emanating out of his face and hands. Suddenly, as if given an order that no one heard, the guards start moving towards the crowd, guns drawn. Mei Feng steps forward and challenges the guards to face her first. They all turn their weapons on her, and she suddenly disappears appears in a puff of steam. She is suddenly within the guild lines, taking them down one by one, as the guards frantically try to shoot at her, but she's always one step ahead. The Governor General starts manifesting images of guild power, and soon his body starts to float above the balcony. Mei Feng's voice can be heard urging the people to take back their streets, and she starts to rise up on a pillar of fire. As she urges the people forward, they push back the guild line and get closer to the Governor General. Mei Feng gets higher off the ground, and suddenly the entire square is filled with a white light as the two powers collide, and Mei Feng is knocked unconscious. A man named English Ivan, who Mei Feng had worked with on a few occasions, moves through the rubble of the aftermath, finds Mei Feng's body, and takes her to safety. Mei Feng was not aware of the Governor General's death, as she was unconscious for a time after her battle with him. English Ivan cared for her, and noted down the words she spoke as she talked in her sleep. He started to suspect that she served a master other than the Arcanists, and when she woke up, he lied to her, telling her that he was a worker in her mob, and that he saved her after the clash with the Governor General. Mei Feng had no reason to doubt him, as she expected to wake up in a prison. She wanted to return to her people, but Ivan convinced her that she needed time to heal, and the two grew closer as she rested. Once she felt like her old self, she and Ivan parted ways with fond looks and a promise that they would speak again. When Neil Henry finds out that his employer, Grumman Rail Lines, is struggling, he decides to put in extra effort at work. This attracts the ire of Condor Rails, who was hoping to snatch up the smaller company while it was vulnerable. They kidnap Neil's family, and the man stages a daring rescue, taking on several constructs and men with guns. He returns from the ordeal injured, but goes back to work and finishes his assignment in record time. He wakes up in a hospital bed the next day, and his nurse tells him he has a visitor. As Mei Feng walks in the room, she tells him that she's impressed with his work, and he tries to brush off the compliment. Mei Feng insists, and tells him that she thinks his talents would be better suited working directly for the foundry. Neil responds that he doesn't want to leave his boss hanging, and Mei Feng explains that he doesn't have to worry about Grumman Rail Lines, as they are being incorporated into the foundry as well. She tells him that he'll be working the same rail lines, but with a more reliable crew that will respect him instead of treating him as a liability. Neil tells her that that sounds good to him. When Misaki challenges her father, the Oyabun of the Ten Thunders, to a duel, Mei Feng chooses to stand on her side, as she has never liked the current Oyabun. This is a great risk, and very few people stand with Misaki, because it's a show of disrespect to the leader of the Ten Thunders. They all gather at Shenlong's temple, and when the fight starts, Misaki deftly cuts down her father, taking his place as the new Oyabun. Her father's generals attempt to pledge their loyalty to her, but Misaki gives the order, and her followers, including Mei Feng, cut down the old Oyabun's allies. Mei Feng assembles several rail golems and workers outside of the breach near Promise. She walks among the golems, inspecting them for imperfections, and once she's satisfied, she addresses the crowd, telling them that they have kept their secret long enough, and tonight they will march through the breach to aid the Three Kingdoms. Misaki steps out of the darkness and yells for her to stop. She approaches Mei Feng, and several of her men appear as well. The workers ready their weapons, and Kang snarls, as Mei Feng tries to hide her surprise, and asks Misaki who ratted her out. The Oyabun demands to know what's going on, and tells Mei Feng that she has 1 minute to explain herself before she takes off her head. Mei Feng says that she would have killed her already if that's what she wanted, but she takes a defensive stance anyway. Misaki motions to the rail golems and tells her that they belong to the Thunders, and asks if Mei Feng really thinks she can desert their cause with the entire foundry. Mei Feng explains that they are answering the call to join the Three Kingdoms coalition, adding that Earth is in chaos, with insect creatures appearing out of nowhere, and crazy cultists butchering their own people. Misaki replies that she won't be lectured about ignoring the suffering of people on Earth, and reminds Mei Feng that she and her brother were rescued by the former Oyabun when their parents were killed by the guild. Mei Feng shoots back that she and her brother didn't need saving, and in her anger, steam shoots out around her, hiding the two women. Misaki orders her people to do nothing, as if Lady Feng is going to be killed, it will be by her hand. Mei Feng asks Misaki who runs the foundry, who built the town of Promise from the dust, and who stood against the Governor General at the height of his powers. The rail workers all cheer. Misaki answers that her father gave Mei Feng all of those things, and reminds the woman that when she took power from her father, she did not take any of them away. She asks Mei Feng why she has betrayed her. Mei Feng asks if fighting for her country's survival is betrayal, and she explains that she came to Malifaux to build a better future for her people, but the former Oyabun turned it into a hell worse than they suffered on Earth. Misaki is confused and asks what she's talking about, and Feng challenges her, asking if her father didn't tell her what really went on in Promise. She explains that the Oyabun set up this town to milk money out of the Chinese refugees, and that the Thunders even started the Boxer Rebellion to force their people to flee to Malifaux. She adds that the Japanese are always abusing them. Misaki shoots back that if what she's saying is true, then it was she who was torturing her own people on the former Oyabun's orders. Mei Feng replies that the people trust her because she promised to bring them home, and that the Ten Thunders are a criminal organization, and they don't want to be part of it anymore. Misaki replies that she has made her choice then, as she thrusts her basento at the woman's chest. Mei Feng deflects the attack with her claws, and counterattacks, and they both deftly attack and counterattack, dodging each other's blows. Mei Feng tells her that she won't stop, and she can't stop, and Misaki presses her attack. Mei Feng counters too soon, striking the shaft of the basento, causing it to shatter, and following through, cutting Misaki's chest. At the same time, Misaki brings down the blade of the basento, thrusting it into Mei Feng's thigh. As the steam around them evaporates, the workers see Mei Feng laying on the ground as Misaki stands over her. Mei Feng realizes that Misaki's weapon must have been coated in some sort of paralyzing venom, and she tells the woman to kill her. Misaki declares that she betrayed her Oyabun and must pay the price. And Mei Feng replies that she would rather suffer the same pain inflicted on her people 1,000 times over than be Misaki's lapdog. Misaki lifts her weapon and brings it down, but stops before delivering the final blow. She tells Mei Feng that she does not want to spare her, but that she is also not her father. She explains that she now sees that Mei Feng's betrayal is her fault, and that had she known what was going on in Promise, she would have stopped it. She helps Mei Feng up, and then turns to the assembled men and tells them to heed her authority, or they will meet a fate less generous than their master. She then whispers to Mei Feng and tells her that she will continue with her same assignment, infiltrating the Arcanists, and stay in Malifaux. But Misaki will let her send assets Earthside periodically to help the Three Kingdoms. She asks the woman if this is a fate worse than dying. Mei Feng replies that she's been humiliated in front of her men and that she can't return home. This is a fate worse than death. Misaki tells her that that's the point, but a bit of warmth returns to her voice, and she explains that now Mei Feng's men, the Three Kingdoms, and the Ten Thunders are counting on her. She adds that it doesn't matter where they're from, but where they're going, and Misaki does not care what the other Japanese people think of the Chinese. Mei Feng replies, "Yes, my Oyabun." After her defeat at Promise, Mei Feng's anger raged, but time has caused her temper to cool. Increased pressure from Condor Rails has caused the Foundry to have to push their people to the brink, and Mei Feng finds the new sense of unity at the Union, under the leadership of Tony Ironsides, to be attractive. She still needs Misaki in order to keep helping the Three Kingdoms, but Mei Feng now encourages her people to stand together for the good of all, and her loyalty to the Ten Thunders is starting to wane. So that's it for Mei Feng. It's interesting, most of the dual faction masters have one faction that they're clearly more loyal to. For Mei Feng, that used to be the Ten Thunders, but now we're seeing that maybe she's actually more aligned with the Union. Ironsides is one of my favorite characters, and I can really see Mei Feng and Ironsides getting along. They have a lot in common. They're both willing to do some bad things, but they're also rare among the Malifaux characters in that their goals are mostly admirable. I'm looking forward to seeing them flesh that relationship out, and also to see what Misaki's gonna do to try to keep Mei Feng's loyalty. She seems to want to be nicer than her dad, but a lot of the damage is already done, and now she's being tainted by the Burning Man, so that might make this all even worse. But anyway, drop a comment below. Let me know if you think Mei Feng is going to be more loyal to the Ten Thunders long term or more loyal to the Arcanists. And you can also let me know who you want to see me do the next video on. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to help keep the series running. And thanks for watching.